What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch, and today we're going to be attempting to answer the most commonly asked question of us. How do I escape my rank? How do I get out of X, Y, or Z rank? What do I have to do? Well, today we're going to try to break down not just matchmaking as a concept, but Season 5 as well, because of course, every season has been a little bit different, and Season 5, I think, is probably the most complicated one to rank up in because of how much is in the game right now. In other seasons, it could be pretty easy and say, well, just play Ana Rhyne, just play Beyblade, just play Zarya, Roadhog. There was very clear heroes that stood out as so darn good that you could just play them and probably rank up, because if you had that knowledge and your enemies didn't, and they ran a comp that wasn't as good, you could fairly easily get to a higher rank than you would otherwise. Now in Overwatch, though, because so much is in the game, I would call it a wide open meta, really, where just about any strategy has some semblance of being able to work. The biggest breadth of understanding of the game can get you fairly far, but that doesn't mean you have to be able to play every hero either. I'm going to move on to talking about practical matchmaking advice, but first we'll talk about heroes. I think really the only real crucial heroes that you would want to run and feel kind of uneasy if you don't have is Lucio on many points, although I know many of you don't want to be the one playing Lucio. It's great to have a good Lucio on your team because it really changes what you're able to do, especially on King of the Hill. Being able to get in on the point, on the objective, fighting them before they're ready to be fighting is a way to win team fights for free. The other key hero, I think, is Winston. Because Reinhardt's having such a rough time anyway, Winston deals with so many different types of things and doesn't die instantly because he can get wherever he wants. Ryan's kind of getting outflanked and outmaneuvered, and I still like playing Ryan, even in the flank-heavy meta, but he requires a lot more discipline, is more difficult to play. With that being the case, of course, flankers like Pharah, Tracer, Genji can do really well. Team comps are typically going to be spreading out, so if you're able to play one of those heroes to a high level, you're going to do well in your games, but of course, that requires you to play them at a high level. More information on playing those heroes, you can check out the other guides on our channel. And the last bullet point on my chopping block for Season 5, of course, is understanding how to play around Pharah. I think it's the most misunderstood concept in the entirety of Overwatch right now. At least from the matchmaking side of things, the pros don't really struggle with this at this point. Of course, they have teamwork and immense amounts of skill, so that's going to change things differently. Us mere mortals have to sort of strategize and coordinate with randoms in order to deal with these problems, but if you are struggling against Pharah, make sure that your team comp isn't running a bunch of stuff that is weak to it. If you're running Reinhardt Zarya, for instance, and you're wondering why the enemy Pharah is just dominating the skies, well, there's a reason why Winston and D.Va are considered the best tanks right now, and it's because they can battle all the crazy angles of attack that are coming towards them. Despite popular belief, Soldier and McCree don't really counter Pharah. There are ranges where they will kill Pharah easily, but at both long range and a quick up-close duel, they're not really good against Pharah, and there's some maps and ranges where you could say they're objectively bad. McCree, for instance, is only going to be somewhat good on close-range maps, because if Pharah is able to either play too far away or have the space to be able to pounce him, well, she dictates the entire pace of that. Same thing with Soldier. Characters that you definitely want on your team comp in order to counter the Pharah will be D.Va to eat rockets. Tracer is surprisingly good against Pharah. Although she can get one shot from a damage-boosted rocket, she also has the mobility to really outposition Pharah because she's so much faster than her. And if you're able to blink out from high ground anywhere, you actually can get your pulse pistols mid-air to do some insanely quick burst damage, the likes of which that aren't possible with Soldier from afar. Another sleeper pick against Pharah, I would say, is Sombra. She's been used a lot at the pro side of play recently, but at some point, I think what the pros have already learned needs to get caught up in matchmaking, and that's that Sombra actually is a support. Spreading your team comp out, giving health packs for your flankers and dive tanks to hack, as well as, kind of similar to Tracer, out-positioning the Pharah and being able to have a large clip to sustain a lot of damage from range. At some point, I'm thinking Sombra's going to really increase in popularity and success rate when everyone realizes what she's capable of. The problem is, oftentimes, she gets picked in the DPS slot, which makes it hard to build her ult, because then you have like basically 3 supports all competing for healing and ult charge, whereas what the pros do right now is play Sombra with a single healing support. I laid down tons of nerdy stuff on you in a really short amount of time. Of course, we've made videos about this, and we'll make videos in the future, especially about the Sombra thing, specifically on those strategies, but I wanted to get you a quick start guide into Season 5 right away to be able to get a grip on your rank. So, that's the nerdy meta advice. Now we're going to go on to talk about matchmaking as a concept, both the structure of how the matchmaker works when ranking you, but also quote-unquote matchmaking in terms of a cultural thing. as in the process of playing with random players and the things that go on with that, and how to try to best overcome the challenges that presents. Well, first of all, the thing that I would advise everyone to do, especially if you're trying to get another rank, is stop blaming the matchmaking system. I'm sure I can partly take some blame on this, being critical of the matchmaking system as it's been thus far. There's some aspects of it that I wish were different, or at the very least we had a team queue to overcome the things that I'm not a big fan of in the normal matchmaker. But we can't change the rules. You have to operate within the system that you're given, so it's best, instead of focusing on some externalities, some really uncommon small problems in the system, whether that be top 500 Hanzos with 40% win rates, or whatever else exploitation you think exists, instead focus on your own game. Although there's all these other little things that are complicating the matchmaking system to try to make it so that matches are fair, the biggest component is and always has been being able to win games. If you put away all the excuses aside that you think is holding you back and look at yourself, if you actually improve at the game and matchmaking, which I'll describe in a second, you will rank up. Now, playing in matchmaking requires you to understand matchmaking. The matchmaking skill set extends far beyond just playing Overwatch, and let's talk about a few of those things that matter as well. One, knowing how to judge your team. I saw this in a Lone Hawk video on a recent guide he did for Tracer. The one tip he gave was knowing how well your team plays and being able to judge what they're capable of. This is something that we've tried to say for quite some time. I agree with this heavily, that this is probably the biggest skill set you can have in matchmaking. Not just playing your hero well, but understanding and reading where your teammates are at. You can't go into it with the assumption that they're going to play the hero one way. Even if your assumption of how they should be playing is correct, you have to be able to adapt and command and organize with their approach to the game. Now, sometimes you can get the players to change that, let's say. I might say to my Winston player, if you watched my target prioritization video from a couple days ago, it might be helpful to say, Winston, only focus the Genji. Killing Lucio doesn't do anything. Now, you can say that statement, but sometimes that Winston player might just get incredibly upset about that, might take offense to it, say that you're flaming them, or disagree with you entirely. I'm killing the healers every time, what are you guys doing? The problem is, in matchmaking, you don't have time to explain. Well, you see, Winston is the best counter to Genji because he can keep up with him, gets damage when he leaps on him, can shoot through reflect, all sorts of things. None of that matters. There's no point or time to be able to argue with your Winston player who wants to dive healers. So, in that scenario that you have, I have to figure out a pick that either protects myself to be able to duel the Genji myself, or is there a way that I can synergize with the Winston? There's a million scenarios that we could build about playing matchmaking this way, but it is the adaptability point. We made an entire video about this. It's the #1 skill to rank up in Overwatch, is adaptability. It's this skill set that turns games that otherwise would be losses into wins. But if that doesn't work out, we're going to go into probably even a bigger, more important aspect of matchmaking. Don't listen to the video up to that point and then just start bossing all your teammates around. This one's even more important, and that's patience. There's going to be times where that player turns around and says to you, hey man, get off my case. Don't you know I got gold limbs with 2? Why are you criticizing what I'm doing? And get really mad at you, and it's going to go nowhere. So you have to know when to disengage with trying to cooperate with a teammate that isn't on the same page with you. That's going to happen. With that being the case, realize that in matchmaking, because teams are unorganized, if you as a team make less mistakes than the enemy, you can overcome anything. I really mean that, anything. If you have 1 minute and you have to finish the map against the enemy team on payload, guess what? Possible. If the enemy team make a couple mistakes or don't properly ult stack to wipe you off the cart, anything is possible. Playing King of the Hill, the enemy team has 99. You have to win a team fight and never lose one in order to full hold the map in order to get yourself up to 99. Very possible. Because we're not dealing with organized teams in matchmaking as it is now, you can expect that both teams will be making a lot of mistakes. So limiting the mistakes that you make as a player and also preparing your team to not make mistakes, to make sure that they look out for incoming enemy ults, or to warn D.Va, soldier's gonna have sights, hold your defense matrix and get ready to eat it. Zarya's gonna have grav, split up. Little calls like that to help you avoid the big plays that the enemy team's gonna make, or of course to make sure that your team doesn't fall into making a mistake that might end up losing you the game, can be all the difference in winning a game or losing it. Now, the last section that I want to talk about is knowing yourself as a player, know thyself, knowing what you're capable of, but even more importantly, not selling yourself short. There's one phrase I hear in the Overwatch community that makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and it's that, but we're not pros. Ugh, gross. Don't say that about yourself or about your teammates. Realize that Overwatch is not the most mechanically difficult game. There's aspects of the game that are the height of FPS difficulty, but the majority of the game is about when you press Q. You can press Q like the pros press Q. Don't sell yourself short. Although right now in matchmaking, there's a lot of organized team play that isn't very prevalent. I believe, at least, over time, as more people learn the game of Overwatch, as the experience of players goes up, either through playing the game a lot, watching videos, as esports gets more popular, all of these things go, the skill level of Overwatch players has already gone up, but will continue to go up, as well as their ability to do coordinated plays and play more similar to how pros play the game than the disorganized mess that matchmaking can be sometimes. I will say this, and I wonder if you guys agree with me, but I think matchmaking is playing the best that it ever has played. Unfortunately, there's a lot of pitfalls in matchmaking, and we all know what they are, but I would say at least the game knowledge and team play prevalent in the game right now when I play is higher than it's ever been. It might not be on average where I would like to see it be, but it's a promising sign of progress. So with that being the case, don't get it into your head that you can't play the game akin to how a pro would play the game. You're not playing something completely differently than them. You're playing it in a bit more unorganized fashion, but realize that if you have that approach to the game and your peers don't have that approach to the game and instead grow and develop a higher command of the game, naturally it will be more and more difficult to keep the rank you're currently at. That's something that I think not a lot of people realize, is that over time, as players get better throughout the entirety of the ranking system, each rank gets progressively harder to obtain, which might scare some of you. If you're not getting better at the game, you're not just staying still, you're kind of getting worse, because the players around you are going to be starting to build up how to do ultimate combos with their teammates, how to make sure they maximize their Rhine shield or their D.Va defense matrix without wasting it. Players are just progressively getting better at these aspects of the game, so you yourself, I think at least, will gain the most by being a student of the game. By playing the game not just for your individual impact, but really understanding and commanding the game in a way that will develop your knowledge and mastery of it over time. And by doing that, without a doubt, you will rank up. There's no other option. You can't do all of these things and not rank up. Of course, getting better at the hero that you play is an important thing to rank up as well, but we cover heroes in Hero Guide specifically. There's so many different avenues to go down in terms of what heroes could be in your pool in order to play well. I mentioned at the start of the video, but get a decent pool for yourself and work on all these different skill sets for matchmaking. You undoubtedly will get a higher rank. It's both parts game mastery, social skills, self-discipline, patience, things like that. Maybe I should advise to meditate every day, exercise regularly, eat well. With all that combined, you will have a good time in Season 5. Everybody, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe because we do upload each and every day. So you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss a Your Overwatch upload. Join the notification squad. Linked in the description, you can check out our Discord server, which you can use to pair up with teammates if you do dare wish. 6 stacking is definitely not advised at Masters rank and above, but at the lower ranks, I believe it's been proven for a good way to get a more stable style of Overwatch game. But also you can check out our Twitter where we tweet out news, updates, and give opinions about the game of Overwatch. That's been it for me. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section down below. Love to read your comments. And before we go, we get to answer a Patreon question of the day. If you'd like to pose a question for us to be answered in a video, you can check out our Patreon linked below. The Notorious Dude asks, how did the three of you meet? I'm curious since FREEDO seems to be American, while Liam and Eddie are British as far as I know. Yes, Notorious Dude, I am American, and Liam and Eddie both hail from Britain. All three of us have been on YouTube for quite a long time in the gaming space. We originally were all COD creators, making gaming videos and streaming in the Call of Duty space in various degrees. I met Eddie that way, many years ago now. He watched my content, I stumbled onto his, and we hit it off as online friends immediately and even started doing a podcast together. Liam and Eddie knew of each other through the COD scene, but actually met at a gaming event.
and hit it off as friends from there. As friends of friends tend to meet as well, we eventually all three bumped into each other, playing various games together. Before we did Your Overwatch, we played Counter-Strike Go for, I think, 2 years or so as a small group of friends, grinding through the ranks and trying to be the best Counter-Strike players we could be. But when Overwatch came up, we decided to join forces to create the Your Overwatch channel as you know it today, and the rest is history. Thank you, Notorious Dude, for your question.
I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. See you guys next time.